and welcome to the first evening of Frank Conversation on Hard Copy for the year 2022. I'm Maokbe Ogun Yusuf. Yes, it's the second Friday in the year and it feels like we're already 1 month gone, especially with all that has happened in the polity. 2022, we all know, is a political year, and no sooner had the whistle been blown for January the 1st when we started hearing presidential declarations. The political actors are truly in a hurry, I tell you. But while some are gearing up to run, others are not only exiting the political space, but the stage called life as well. The passing of interim national leader Chief Ernest Shonekan, a former presidential aspirant Bashir Tofa, and former governor of Oyo State Chief Adebayo Alao Akala comes to mind. We also have recorded the deaths of fellow everyday Nigerians in Zamfara State who lost their lives to the activities of bandits, now recognized as terrorists in the Northwest. On the bright side, however, the suspension on Twitter was lifted. A lot to truly process in barely 15 days of this new year. It is in recognition of how overwhelming all of this can be that we bring you this interview. Our guest tonight is Sheik Lemu, son of great Islamic scholar and former Grand Cadi of Niger State, Sheik Ahmed Lemu, who's late now. Well, the apple didn't fall far from the tree, as Sheik Lemu serves as the Director, Research and Training, Dawa Institute of Nigeria Islamic Education Trust. Our conversation was recorded last year, so you might find some of the issues dated, but the essence of it is not. And the lessons we want you to ponder on are timeless, fit for whatever season of life you're in. So do stay tuned. Sheik Lemu, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you very much, Mokbe, for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Well, it was just last year since you announced the passing of your father in 2020. And I imagine that 2021 must have been a pretty new terrain for you, having to do this without him with you, you personally, and of course as a family. How has it been for you?
It's been a very difficult year, but we thank God for his mercies and blessings and the support of friends and family. Just about 3 years ago, I lost my mother, and about 1.5 years ago, lost my elder brother. And then last year, just the day before Christmas, we lost our father. So it's been a period of loss. We lost him to COVID. Of course, he was old and had underlying conditions. But at the same time, the death of people like our parents has sometimes been like the death of a gardener who has been planting flowers. Some you are aware of, some you are not aware of. And when they pass away, that's when you get to meet people who tell you about the good things that they did that you're not aware of. And so every time you meet people who tell you things you didn't know, it makes you, in one sense, appreciate more the kind of father and parents we have or we had, how blessed we were, and we're grateful to God for that. Of course, you feel a bit guilty. You wish you had done more, but that is life. So we just have to learn to live with it and grow and continue to pray for the support that we need from God and the people that God places around us.
I mean, you lost your father to COVID. Some families have had to go through that pain. And a number of other issues which, you know, we've had to deal with as a country. Security challenges, some would have lost their families to that, or, you know, members of their families to that. Health challenges, which maybe perhaps the hospitals here were not able to cater to. A number of other challenges. But for you, perhaps, it might be a little more pressing because you lost him during a festive season. For those times, what would I say, can you speak to those people who have to deal with a sense of loss oftentimes during festivities and cannot muster the joy which that season ought to bring?
Absolutely. for both our parents, our mother, she passed away on the 5th of January 2019. So that's just as we have gone into the new year. Elder brother, we lost him during Ramadan. And dad, we lost him, just at the end of the year when everybody is going into the long holidays. And but it also coincided with lockdowns, social distancing. And so even the festive seasons were not as festive as we would have expected. So it wasn't really, it wasn't the best of times, but there's no best of times. It's all about where you are at your time and you make the best with your context. So in a sense, it's the mixture of a difficult period, but at the same time, the gratitude that you are never alone. God has placed a lot of good people from different walks of life, different faiths, ethnicities, and nationalities. And I think we're grateful we are where we are now. And hopefully we have grown, not in spite of, but actually as a result of the difficulties and stresses that we have seen. So ever grateful, as pessimistic as it is, we hold on to hope.
Well, you have continued to carry the torch of Islamic enlightenment in a world increasingly beleaguered with religious misunderstanding, a plague of which our country has not been spared. Now, would you say the lines of religious understanding are expanding in our country? Or would you say that those who seek our differences are gaining the upper hand?
I think globally, we have realized a rise in identity politics in nearly every country, a rise in tribal, ethnic, racial, religious, regional tensions. So something, extremism has been on the rise, and we've seen a clash of extremisms, each giving birth and agitating the other. So it's not been very good if you look at the graph. Having said that, it is usually when the lights go out that people put their torches on. It's when it gets dark that people start to switch their lights on. And we have noticed an increase in people from the Black Lives Matter, people concerned about racial issues, and not just about Blacks and their treatment in America, but globally. There's been a rising awareness of that type of injustice. There's been a rising awareness of religious phobia, Islamophobia, Christianophobia, various forms of phobia, and a rise in the need for asserting freedom of religion and belief internationally. We've noticed greater gender-based violence, but we've also seen an awakening of people struggling, talking, putting reforms against gender-based violence. And so while on one hand, a lot of problems have increased, we have also seen more Good Samaritans, more initiatives by communities and individuals, peacemakers, organizations, trying to match the challenge. And the graph is improving in the number of people, the amount of awareness. There's a lot of good news also out there. So I would say we are seeing an increase in Muslims who are actively bridge building, in Christians who are actively bridge building, but the same thing we find among Hindus and Buddhists, among Jews, and even people who do not associate themselves with any formal religion. I think as a species, as human beings, in many ways, we are getting more united, and I think COVID has helped us with that. We've seen greater international collaboration in vaccines, but also opening the door to very effective vaccines for malaria. China just announced its malaria-free HIV vaccines coming out. So it's true, we've got bad news, but we've also got a lot of good going on and good news also. So we stay optimistic.
Well, many people would like to stay optimistic as well. But oftentimes, these understandings in religion, these misunderstandings in religion, sometimes translate to politics or carry over into politics and manifest in violent conflicts, which you're no stranger to. Now, I imagine that having worked closely with your father, who once headed a post-election violence committee, now, given where we are and the fact that 2022 is going to be a political year, would you say that you've seen attempts to work on the factors which are capable of igniting violence again in an election year?
Not as much as I would hope, but a number of initiatives have started coming up across the country. International concern for peace in Nigeria. If you recall, it was assumed that Nigeria would not survive together into this decade. We seem to have passed that, I hope. I, however, hope that we have learned enough about Nigeria to preempt and prevent. And I hope we are tired enough of fighting to not add more violence to the violence we already have in this country. I think it's clear enough, whether it's from the Boko Haram side to the Niger Delta, to kidnapping, to herdsmen, to the whole clashes. I hope we are tired enough and really consider realistic alternatives to violence in dealing with grievances. But it won't happen just through prayers and hopes. I think we need to ask ourselves, what can we do on our level as individual responsible citizens, as people of faith, as people who hope for a better Nigeria? We must ask ourselves, what can we do? And do, not just talk.
For those who are asking that question, what answers would you be able to give to them?
Firstly, I would say our condition will not change until we change ourselves. And there's the need for us to really care about Nigeria, to realize we do not have another Nigeria. We don't have a population that anybody wants to take as refugees. We're too big for anybody to want to welcome us. So we must make Nigeria habitable. Some countries that we run off to now at some time were actually described as the Wild West. They had dark ages, and they were able to come out of that context. And if anybody is going to do it, we should. The people who have dilapidated the infrastructure, those who stole the millions and billions, those who stole in dollars, are not people of some other ethnicity. They are some people of your religious belonging, your religious identity, your ethnic group, your region. And we look in the mirror, as Jesus, peace be upon him, would say, don't see the speck in somebody else's eye without recognizing the log in your own. So I think it starts with that taking of responsibility, that the problem is not elsewhere. The problem is at home. It's with me. It's with us. And what can we do? But to start with the smallest steps. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, the deeds most loved by God are those done regularly, even if they are small. To look at what can I do between me, my friends, me, my family, and me, my neighborhood. What can we do? We need to recognize that some of the walls around our houses are not just physical walls that keep others out. It keeps us out of our own communities. So we need to get to know our community, form neighborhood groups, and through those neighborhood groups, get to know who are the most vulnerable, who need help. How can we get together to handle security? And if anybody starts agitating for violence, what can we on the neighborhood level, on the community level, on the religious community level, on the ethnic, on whatever community we have some influence over, what can we do on that level to make that part of Nigeria better? And if we can do what we can, then hopefully our neighborhood would be a shining example for our neighborhood that, the neighbors that surround us. Just look at what you can do within the little Nigeria that you occupy. And I think if you can do that, at least you've got some good answers to give God on the day when he asks you, and what did you do about what you could do, not what you couldn't do. Not just complaining, but if it's sincere, I think we should do something on the neighborhood level at least. At least.
Let's take a break at this point. We'll be back to further continue our conversation. This time around, it will be around security. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Security of lives and property continue to bother the thoughts of many Nigerians. Sheik Lemu, the Director, Research and Training, Dawah Institute of Nigeria Islamic Education Trust, who's our guest tonight, shares an interesting perspective on the matter. Sheik, security was on the front burner this year. Niger State, where you're speaking to me from, was a hotbed with students kidnapped. Some were held for ransom for weeks. And as we speak, even in faraway Zamfara, a district head and his son lost their lives in that state. It will seem that security will continue to be a major issue in 2022. From where you stand, what lines would you say that government has left untouched?
I think there's what, as a people, we have left untouched, government inclusive. The cost of inequality, the cost of forgetting about the poor and the less privileged. A metaphor is given in one of the sayings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that society is like a ship on a sea, with the wealthy and the elite and the leadership occupying the upper deck of the ship, and the majority of the poor occupying the lower deck of this ship. When the people of the lower deck want essential things like water, essential needs, they talk to the people of the upper deck to help them get water. If the people of the upper deck care and help them get water, then everybody is relatively happy. But if you do not allow the people of the lower deck to get water, you don't give it to them, you don't give them access to it, they start to get creative and they start to think, but there's water below us, let's just drill a hole, and it ends up capsizing the whole ship. So whole society sinks. When we abandon the less privileged, it's not described as a bad thing for no reason. There's going to be cause and effect. So number one, the recognition that at the heart of insecurity is the abandonment of the grievances, a discrimination, an I don't care attitude about the poor. Number one. Number two, of course, one of the priority responsibilities of the state is security. But the security apparatus lacks competence, unfortunately, lacks adequate pay. There's so much that needs to be done when you look at how much needs to be done. So definitely there's a lot that is required by experts in that area to tell us more and to do more. When you look at the number of security agents and their competencies to handle the Boko Haram problem, and at the same time Niger Delta problem, and at the same time herdsman and farmer clashes, and at the same time kidnappings, etc., and at the same time all the other everyday challenges that we have as a nation, cultism on the rise here and there, our security services get stretched. And I think we unfortunately did not nip things in the bud. Usually what happens when a virus, for example, enters your body, or how vaccines work, is they give you a weaker form of the virus. Your body then prepares and deals with that little one and gets stronger. When we had one kidnapping, second kidnapping, unfortunately, we didn't deal with it as decisively as we should. We looked at it as just little isolated things until more people found that as profitable. We used to have cattle rustlers, people who will just steal a whole herd of cattle. But then the cattle rustlers realized, wait, you don't need to steal the whole herd of cattle. You just need to kidnap one person in the family and tell the family, you sell off your cattle and, send us the ransom. So there's so much. It's the big worry. It's the big issue as we move into the next elections. It is something that we are all concerned about. At the same time, I think while we deal with the current effect of our marginalization of the poor, we should not look at it as we only have a security problem. Let us look at all the other challenges, the unemployment, the education, those out of school children, all the bigger problems for which our current insecurity is also a result, an effect of those causes. So we must stay holistic in our approaches while handling the priority problem, which definitely is security in my humble understanding.
Well, when you think about the plethora of challenges and just how complex they are, it is very difficult to stay optimistic. You find a lot of young people in particular losing faith in the country. A lot of them finding their way out of it, thinking that perhaps if they looked for greener pastures, perhaps it'll be better. Those who can afford it, getting as much as they can and flying out of the country. Those who can't are going through the Sahara and perhaps through Libya and some other places. What would we be saying to our young people that indeed there is something to work and to hope for here in Nigeria?
Definitely a very difficult question to answer in these times. Optimism is very difficult, but as people of faith, we never lose hope. We recognize that after hardship, there is relief. We recognize that we have not been sent to heaven. This is earth. It is not hell, thank God. It may feel like it sometimes, but this is where we exercise our agency as human beings, as people of faith, to make the world a better place. It's not that people don't have problems, but you also have to recognize there are others who are in much greater need. And it's true we have serious insecurity in Nigeria, but it's nowhere as bad as it is in South Africa. It's not as bad as it is in Mexico or Guatemala or Colombia. Yes, we have problems, but we must recognize that other places are bad, but we have to do what we can to improve. And yes, some people feel honestly they can't bear it. I think God does not put a burden on somebody that is greater than that which they can bear. So while I can understand some people saying, I have to send my child elsewhere for their education, I can no more deal with the insecurity, I must move to another part of Nigeria or move to another country, I think one can empathize and not blame such people. But what we need to also do is encourage each other. Personally, I don't listen to a lot of news, primarily because I found it very, very negative. News seems to always be bad news. And it can just dampen your day when you're already trying to focus on doing something. No prejudice to news agencies or channels TV. But I think what keeps me going is identify something that I can do to help, focus, do the best I can, network with as many people across the various divides and see how we can move forward. That's what other countries did who are in worse situations than we are, and it'll pass. Graphs always go up and down, and I am sure ours is just down, but it will go up this is the life of we have in this world. But we must do what we can. We must stay optimistic. As people of faith, we have no other alternative but to trust that God will answer our prayers through our actions. But what is required is our collaborated, sincere actions as a way through which hopefully God will answer our prayers. But we remain optimistic. Luta continua, as they say, and God, Victoria Asata, inshallah.
Well, I can tell you that we certainly will do our best to incorporate as much good news as we can into the news. It's one of the reasons why we're bringing you in today. Thank you so much for coming on Hard Copy, Sheik Nuruddin Lemu.
Thank you very much for having me, Mope.
On the 12th of January, I received a message from the former Minister of Aviation, Osita Chidoka, who was full of praise for a community called Neni in Anambra State. From the story he told, he said the elite in the community decided to join hands together, and their joint effort has seen about 24 kilometers of inner city roads asphalted. They haven't stopped there. They've gone on to set up a community road maintenance agency to ensure they keep what they have. They've also raised funds for schools and health services in their community. All of this because one person decided to light a candle and encouraged others to do same. As we slam dunk into the air, let's ask what candles we intend to light this year. It starts with one person. That's our program tonight. We look forward to your feedback from the handles showing on your screen, including our Twitter handle. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Have a happy new year.